Well, all right. Hello, everybody. Come on in the building. Let's have the conversation. Welcome to the show. I'm your man, KTJ, and we're getting into the show tonight. So, tonight we're talking about how to communicate on a date. And this one is going to be one that you don't want to miss. So, if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Come on in the building tonight. We're talking about communicating on a date. And I've been getting this question a lot lately. So I thought this would be a great time to just go ahead and do a stream on this one tonight. And we're also out here on Kick, y'all. We out here on Kick as well as YouTube and Facebook. So if you guys are here and you are ready to get into some stuff here tonight, I have something important to share with you tonight. You guys know I'm a men's counselor turned men's coach turned love coach, and this is the conversations that I have out here. And so I thought this would be a great time to have the conversation about communicating, right? If there's one thing that will change your life, listen to me. Listen to what I have to say. If there's one thing that will change your entire life, if there's one skill that you could get good at, that you can master, I would suggest you learn the art of communication. Listen to what I'm saying. Everything you want, everything you desire, everything you want to have in your life will come to you as a result of communicating. Now, yes, we're going to get into communicating on a date, right? But there's some groundwork that I want to lay before we get into that, right? One of the things you have to learn to do is learn how to communicate with yourself, right? The most important conversation you're ever going to have is the conversation that you have with yourself. Okay? You got to have the conversation with yourself. What do you really think about yourself? Forget about the date for the moment. What do you think about you? Look, I can remember being a young man, and I really cared what people thought. I was a young man. I would only wear certain clothes because I thought other kids would have something to say. I lived in one of those neighborhoods where we bust on each other. We played the dozens. And the dozens was available at any time you stepped out of the house, right? I lived in one of those neighborhoods that all the kids had something to say, right? And so you had to be prepared. Like every day really was a fashion show. It ain't like today. Kids, they go to school in pajamas and like flip-flops and they don't even care. But for us, we were intentional about looking good, right? Because we cared what other people had to say. So listen, what would happen if you didn't care what other people had to say and you cared most about how you felt about you? That's what we're getting into tonight, right? Because one of the things I've discovered the secret. I don't just have the book. Let me show y'all the book real quick. For you guys that have never seen the book, here's the book. Secrets of the Mind of a Man. How men think when it comes to dating, relationships, and love. You can get that down in the bio. or you can get it on Amazon. But one of the secrets I've discovered throughout all of this, it's really one of life's secrets, right? One of the secrets that I have discovered, life-changing secrets, is life and your life and the success of your life and the love of your life starts with you. If you're going to be successful, it's going to happen because of how you think about yourself, how you communicate about to yourself. You know, there was a time where I've heard people say, "Oh man, just the things they say to you say to yourself. You say things to yourself that you would never allow another person to say. You communicate things to yourself that you would never allow another person to communicate. You allow certain words to come through your mind that you wouldn't allow anybody to say to you. You're so stupid. You're a dummy. You're a fool. How come you did that? Why did you drop that? How come you didn't know this? How come you didn't know that? So dumb. I'm so stupid. Watch your words. If you're going to get skillful in this life, I don't care if you're doing business, if you're doing I don't care if you're it doesn't matter what you're doing. Everything gets better when you learn how to and you pay attention to your words. All right, so let's get into this. We talking about communicating on a date tonight. And there's some things that we need to have conversation about prior, right? I want you to spark engaging conversations on a date. All right. You want to get to know a person's passions, interests, values, and life experiences. So these are a couple of questions we're going to get into tonight that's going to really help you to be a better communicator in your love spaces. All right. But before we get into that, I want you guys to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button on this video, follow us on this journey. I'm at about 7K, almost 8K followers. And you know what? I don't mind the slow growth. As you guys might know, I do all my good talking on TikTok. So I'm coming over here to do some streaming and to do some conversations that's going to help somebody out. All right. So let's get into this. One of the things, before we get even to the list, one of the things that you need to understand is you want to have pre-date conversations. Now, there's some people who suggest, I've heard some men's teachers tell guys, look, if you talk to her on the app, get her off the app and have her meet you for a date as soon as possible. Go meet you for a drink, meet you for coffee, meet you, and don't spend time talking to her ahead of time. I don't know if you guys know the conversation like that out here. Encouraging men to not have conversations ahead of time because they say you're going to blow it. You're going to say something in that time period that makes her not want to be with you. So they're suggesting that you just not engage in that kind of way. Like, get to the point, get out with her, have a good time with her when you see her, and don't try to do any pre-talk. But I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that for the man or the woman. Right? For the man, I want you to be able to understand if this is somebody who you should even be taking out. Right? There's only one way for you to know if this is somebody that you should be spending any time with, that you should be buying, something to drink, spending any time with, and there's only one way to know if this is the person that you should be doing that with, and that is by taking them out. That is by having pre-date conversation. Okay, pre-date conversation. Ladies, same thing. Look, I tell all my female clients, look, you shouldn't even be going out with a man until you have talked to him on the phone. Don't go out with a man until you have had video chat with him. If you met him on the apps, you should not be going out with him until you've had that time to get to know him, because you need to know, is this guy even worth getting dressed for? Is this guy worth you getting your hair done for? Is this guy worth you spending your evening? Stop doing the thing over here to go be with this person. And you can't know that unless you communicate ahead of time. Okay? You can't know that. So I'm suggesting that you get to know them ahead of time. Right? So let's talk about, let's get some conversation starters, some things that you can talk about ahead of time, maybe by video chat or by telephone. I know it slows down the process, but what you want is a slower process. You want to understand their passions. You want to understand their interests. You want to understand their values. You want to understand their life experiences. All right. So let's talk about it. Here's a question that you can ask in the pre-date or on the date. Here we go. Let's get into it. How about this? What are you passionate about? You can ask, what are you passionate about? What do you get into that lights you up? That's a different way of asking that same question. Essentially, you're asking about their excitement. You can ask, instead of asking like, how are you doing, and all those things, you can ask, what is it that makes you excited? What are you excited about in your life right now? Great conversation starter. You're listening for passion. What are you excited about in your life right now? That's a question that I give to my clients. Right? And look, that's a good question to ask. Why is that a good question to ask? What are you excited about in your life? It's a passion question because you want to know, are they the kind of person that gets excited? You want to know, are you boring? Listen to me. This one question could save you time and energy in wasting it on the wrong person. Asking them, what are you excited about in your life right now? If a person does not have an answer for what they are excited about in their life right now, guess what? They're probably not going to be excited later either. That's a sign. Okay. Now, you don't want to actually get to the date necessarily. These are questions, again, y'all. These are questions that you could ask before the date to determine if there should be a date. We need more people, ladies. We need y'all to stop going out for food, dating for food, going out on a date for free food. Like, you can buy your own food. We need you to be getting out here and listening to see if this person is worth even spending an evening with. All right. Now let's hold on that passion conversation. What if somebody comes up and says, you know what? Whew, I just go to work. I work for the city. I go to work every day, battle through traffic, get to work. I do my 8 hours, have my, do my lunchtime, have my 8 hours. I go home right after work, go have a beer and watch the news until I fall asleep. Well, what do you do on the weekends? I sleep, clean my garage out, cut my grass, and I rest. I like to watch movies and I like to watch old westerns, right? They're telling you something about themselves. Okay? Now you're not going to know this unless you ask. If you're not going to know if what these people are all about unless you ask. Okay? All right, got somebody weird in the chat. All right. Look, you're not going to know unless you ask what they are all about. All right. Let's move on to another question. So that's a good passion question. You need to know what people are passionate about. All right. Here, look, as you're trying to get to know them, here's another passion question. What skill would you like to learn? Okay. Or look, here's an even better question. I've heard somebody ask this before. What's your favorite book, movie, show, or podcast? What's your favorite book, movie, show, or podcast? Right now, that sounds like a question that you could just ask, and it's like it just goes by, right? But but there's something specific for you to be listening for in this question. One lady said she asks a man, like, do you listen to podcasts? Right. And if he says yes, she said it's a red flag. And I told her I was like, no, that's not a red flag. She said, oh, yes, it is. She said it's a red flag. I said, no, it's not a red flag just because he's listening to the podcast. She said, oh, if he listens to red pill content, it must be a red flag. And I said, no, you can listen to red pill content and not become a red pill person, right? Because some of the things that they saying in the red pill actually make sense. It doesn't, not all of it. And you shouldn't be following anybody in total in blindness. Okay. You need to listen to what they have to say, take the fish, leave the bones, and move on. But to this lady, she was like, nah, player. These guys can't tell the difference. And she says, when I hear a guy say he listens to podcast, he listens to the Fresh and Fit, he's listening to this and that one, Coach Greg Adams, she's like, if he's listening to that, he's automatically a red flag. And I said, you're wrong. I said, you're wrong. He's educating himself about dating dynamics, life in general, and that cannot be wrong. There can't be anything wrong with that, with learning about this world that we're living in. All right. So let's keep going on this. And you guys could drop your question. You got a question, drop your question in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to it. All right. So let's keep going on this. We're talking about conversations and what to say, what to talk about. One of the top things men get caught up in is what to talk about on a date. Women can generally talk about anything, right? But men get jammed up. So we're gonna help them out here tonight. All right. So here's another one. What's your favorite memory from childhood? I talked about this one earlier. What's your favorite memory from childhood? This is a good question to have, a good question to ask someone either pre-date or on a date. What's your favorite childhood memory? Who can guess? Somebody guess the things you'll learn from someone who tells you about their favorite childhood memory. What are some things that you'll learn when you hear them say that? Drop it in the chat. I could think of a couple of things right off the top, right? If you're asking about their favorite childhood memory, often they're going to tell you about how they grew up. They'll tell you whether they have in that story, in their first memory. It could be first memory, right? You can ask, what was your first memory? What's going to be in that conversation of your first memory? It's going to be parents, right? You'll find out that they grew up with two parents. You'll find out what kind of neighborhood they grew up in, what kind of environment they grew up in, right? You're listening. Communication, good communication is more about listening than it is talking. Okay. So, I can remember, and I shared this a little earlier, but I can remember for me, my earliest memory, one of my first memories that just comes to me is I grew up in church, and I was about 2 or 3 years old. I can literally remember this. The church, my father was the pastor, and I was about 3 years old, and the drum set caught on fire. I was about 3 years old, and the drum set caught on fire, and it caught on fire because a space heater was too close to it, and it melted the plastic, and then the drum set caught on fire, and we had to abandon the church, and I was a little child. I was a child, and I remember that. So look, even in that little story right there that I just told you, one of my earliest memories of life was the drum set catching on fire at church. All right, we got somebody that's rude in the chat. All right, all right. Well, your message is not going to come through, my friend. So then there's that. Okay. So look, one of the things you can learn a lot when you listen to someone talk about their earliest memory. Okay. For some people, now mine is happy, right? But for some people, they can say my earliest memory was I was, you know, I was touched, maybe being beaten, maybe it's being burned, right? And when you hear that, that can help you understand who they are today. Okay. You want to understand a person, listen to them and listen to them talk about their childhood memories. Some people had great childhood memories, some people had rotten childhood memories. And here's what I can tell you: people who had terrible childhood memories often struggle as adults because they spend their whole rest of their adult life trying to recover from a rotten childhood. Now, listen, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. If you don't want to be involved with somebody who's got trauma at the very core of their lives, now's your time to run. Now's your time to disappear. If you don't want to be involved with somebody who's been through abuse, someone who's been through abandonment, somebody who's been, you know, maybe they ended up in foster care, maybe they've been hurt, right? Now, I'm not telling you to not deal with anybody who has trauma, but you also want to be listening for what have you done to work on that trauma. You don't have to ask that right up front, right? But keep it in the back of your mind when people are telling you about their trauma and how they grew up, and if they grew up wild. For some kids, they grew up, especially kids around my age, they grew up. Some of them grew up as crack babies. Some of them grew up with parents who got strung out on crack. I come from the crack era and the epidemic, and it was devastating. It was devastating, right? You saw really nice, well-mannered parents turn into dope fiends. and it's devastating, right? And so if you grew up in that, if that person grew up in that environment, they have taken some of that forward and it has impacted their life in some kind of way. I guarantee you. So this is the things that you want to get this stuff clear. You want to understand where a person is coming from, and it's going to help you to date them even better. Let's keep going on this. Let's keep going. How about this? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Isn't that a good one? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Now, when I think of it, the best piece of advice you've ever received, what does that say about the person? Right? If they can quote to you the best piece of advice they've ever seen, that means they're a person that takes advice. They're a person that doesn't know everything. Have you ever been with somebody who's like the I've done that people? You say, my family, we just came back from Mexico, from Maui, and it was a great time, and we paddle boarded, and the person comes up, oh, for real? Oh, really? Oh, my family did that every summer. That was our bore. It was so boring. We've done it so much. We've done paddle boarding. Oh, that was you're just getting to paddle boarding? Gee whiz. Well, you must have had a terrible childhood, right? And you say, well, yeah, one of my places I'd love to go backpacking. Backpacking? Oh, I've been backpacking every year since 1992. Oh, skiing? Skiing looks like it's so much fun. Oh, skiing? Oh, I've been skiing. I go skiing like twice a month. I'm done with skiing. I don't need to ski anymore. It's like, man, have you done everything? Right? Now, some people have done a lot, but you don't have to, pour cold water on somebody's fire to make yourself feel better. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received is a good question for a pre-date and a date. All right. How about this? If you could swap lives with anyone for a day, who would it be? Great question. If you could swap lives with anybody for a day, who would it be? Look, nowadays you got to be careful about that because we finding out things about the stars that we didn't know before. Some of these people live some raggedy lives, and you thought that they had it all and did it all, and let them get in trouble, and all the dirt comes out. And you're like, wow. But I think that's a good question. Why is that a good question? If you could swap lives with anyone for a day, who would it be? You're going to find out about their morals. You're going to find out about their values. You're going to find out about what means something to them. You're going to find out. Okay. So those two are really great for that. All right. How about this one? What makes you laugh? Some of these questions, I can guarantee you, some people have never actually thought about for themselves. What makes you laugh? What gives you the giggles? What cracks you up? Right? What does this tell you about a person? Listen, all of these questions that I'm naming out and I'm laying out here tonight are questions that are going to tell you something about the person. You ask, what makes you laugh? Right? What's in that question? Sense of humor. You want to know if the person has a sense of humor. Now, what kind of sense of humor do they have? If they say what makes you laugh? Well, you know what makes me laugh? When I watch a murder mystery and I see how dumb people are when they kill somebody like uh-uh. They might have dark humor. Okay? They might be a person who just is not humorous at all. Maybe they don't laugh. Maybe they're just not that person. Maybe they're very serious a person. You have to decide if that's the kind of person you want to be around. Okay? You have to find out, you have to discover if that's the kind of person you want to be around. If they don't have a sense of humor and humor is important to you, that is not going to be a good fit. And it's important for you to know this as soon as possible. It's important for you to know this as soon as possible. Let's get a couple more of these questions that you can ask. Top questions that you can ask on a date, on a pre-date or a date. All right. How about this? And this ties into one of the questions before. What are you currently working on? They be like, what? What are you currently working on? Are you trying or what are you doing? Now, this question is a lot like that first question of what excites you, but you need to know, what are you working on? And if they say nothing, that's a sign. Now here's the opposite, y'all. If they give you a 20-point list of the things that they're working on, that's also a sign. Okay? It's a sign either way to pay attention to. A person I know a lady one time. She wanted to date this guy who was a speaker. He's a love coach speaker, and she really liked him. And she had her own brand too, own personal development brand or something like that. And she just loved this guy. Hey Tanya, what's going on? On Blended Fit. What's going on, Tanya? All right, I'll pull that in a minute. Hold on. So this young lady, right? She was dating this guy. He's a love coach and he had his own brand. And she said she got him on the phone and they were having this conversation on the phone. And they were going back and forth, and he said, well, come on, tell me about you. Tell me what you're passionate about. Tell me what you got going on. And why did he say that? Boy, she started to lay it all out. She said, oh, I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a, kickball coach. I do this. I do that. I'm a notary. She named off like 10 things. And you know what he said? He said, oh, okay. Well, listen, you and I would not work out. And she was devastated. She thought he would be impressed by all her accolades and all the stuff that she was involved in. She was dumbfounded. She was like, well, wait a minute. We would make a perfect fit. You're like the male version of me. And what she didn't know is that men are not looking for a male version of them. They're looking for the woman that fits him. He's not looking for his counterpart in you. Okay? So that question about what are you working on is a good question to ask someone that in a pre-date situation so that you can understand, well, what are they working on? Do they have too much stuff on their plate? Because if they have too much stuff on their plate, they won't have time for you. And I know what some of y'all say, oh, well, if he want to, he will. Well, sometimes people don't have time for it. Relationships require time and energy. And if a person's not willing to give you time and give you energy, it's not going to work. If you got a 9 to 5 and you got a side hustle and a third side hustle and you coach little league and you got to take your daughter to ballet 2-3 times a week and she's a cheerleader. Come on now. You don't have time for a relationship. And if you don't have time for a relationship, it's not going to work. Guarantee you it's not going to work. All right. So those are some good questions to ask. How do you communicate on a date? These are some great communication questions to ask. Because so each one of these questions that I just laid out are ways to communicate, right? They're communicating not just what was said, but what was not said. And that's what you need to be listening for. What are they not saying? Okay. You say, yeah, I'm doing all these 10 things. That might mean that they're not focused. If she's an author, a speaker, a coach, a trainer, this, that, and the other thing, she's a talk show host and she's hosting events and she's, girl about town. Maybe that's not somebody who's going to be a good match for you. She'll be a good match for somebody, probably for a man who can support her in all those things. Somebody to drag that big box and set it up for her. She probably won't need a guy who is equally as talented in the same business as her. And from that situation, I already know that many men feel that way. All right. All right. Well, Tanya had a quick question. We want to go ahead and answer her question. What are your views on blended family? Okay. Blended family. That's a great question. Everything comes down to clarity. Everything comes down to you knowing what you want. Trust me, you can almost fall in love with anybody. But there's two things at work. We're talking about blended family, right? There's two things for you to consider: emotions and logic. Emotions is what you feel for the person. Oh, I feel loved by you. I feel seen by you. I feel heard by you. I love you. Excuse me. I love you. But then there's the logic. Do our lives fit together? Do our lives fit together? Do they go together? Does it make sense for us to be together? And if you had a blended family, you got kids and the guys got kids, the girls got kids, you have to ask yourself, does it make sense for us to be together? Now, I know some people, somebody, I can't remember exactly who it was, but I heard a story where they said to their new stepfather at the wedding or after the wedding. After the wedding, they got introduced to their new stepfather. And I'm telling you, sheesh, no wonder they had a hard time. Because the connection has to be there for all parties involved. The person said they felt betrayed by their mother. They felt like she was just dumping somebody on them, and now they got to do what this stranger says to do. They have to obey this stranger. They have to, you don't even know if they're safe, feel safe in the house. So To me, um, to answer that question, Tanya, blended families happen by connection. And if you can see that the connection is not coming together, don't do it. You can that don't mean y'all got to break up, but maybe coming together as husband and wife is not what you should be doing until those children are old enough. People like forget about them. I don't look them kids. They got to learn it, have their own life. Well, that might be true, but you are their life, especially if you're their only parent. So go slow, move slowly. Don't jump into it. Cautiously see how and be realistic about what you're seeing with these children as they interact with each other and with the new parent. All right. All right. Well, that's all for tonight, y'all. I hope y'all have an amazing night. I'm glad y'all came through. Till next time, peace and love. Check out my website at lovecoachatlanta.com. Book a session right now on my website, lovecoachatlanta.com, and we will help you get what you need. All right. Next time, peace.